Well, thank you. We got a lot of callers, so I want to move on. Let's go to the next caller.
Yeah, we have Richard in Arizona. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, David and Jakari, and you guys are doing a fantastic job, and all the people you have in the field. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your support.
Yeah, you've had it for, 16 years or something. But
thank you.
Anyway, the reason I'm calling in is because of a comment that you were making earlier. I would have liked to then, but you weren't taking calls yet, and you were talking about libertarians sometimes, having bad judgment and wanting everything to be totally unrestricted in trade because it seems like an ideal. And I wanted to make an analogy, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, Alex and other people on your team will say, "Well, they're killing all these people with vaccines, but it's because of the adjuvants." And it's not. And don't worry, it's not because we don't think the vaccine theory is good. We just want clean vaccines. But the reality, since this is a field I know a lot about, is that vaccines from day one were killing a lot of people and causing terrible epidemics. And when you relate that to free trade. So in other words, there's no such thing as a real clean vaccine. That's a myth. Mm-hmm. And as far as free trade goes, even the most idealistic pure free trade is only good for one thing, and that's to move more quickly toward a world economy and a world government. And if there's no way to preserve domestic industry without protective tariffs, and the fact that they've made protectionism some kind of a bad buzzword is highly misleading. It's absolutely essential. And unless you get rid of all the free trade agreements and make it impossible to make things in slave labor countries and bring them in here tariff-free, then domestic industry will never come back.
I agree with you, because we talk about, take Thomas Jefferson, for example, okay? Libertarians love Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson did not have free trade. Thomas Jefferson said in his second inauguration, he said, "We have eliminated useless offices, and we've been able to reduce the size of government, and we have eliminated all internal taxation." They didn't have an income tax to get rid of. They eliminated all forms of internal taxation. He says, "What farmer, what laborer, what mechanic knows a taxman?" And of course, that was a rhetorical question. They didn't. They didn't know who, they didn't have to pay taxes to the federal government. All of the federal government, when it's run at a constitutional size, could be funded off of trade tariffs at the border. And it's interesting, I think, if we go back and we look at the history of the income tax, when they imposed the income tax, and at the beginning it was a very small tax, only on the upper 1%. They were really the only people who paid any taxes of any amount, just the 1%. When they enacted the income tax, what did they do? They used it to cut tariff trade. So, why don't we just say, let's cut the income tax completely. Let's put taxes on goods coming in the border. Let's have a free trade within America. We don't have free trade within American borders because we're not allowed, for example, in healthcare, insurance companies can't compete across state lines. How does the federal government support something like that? The federal government and the Commerce Clause, which they use all the time to intrude themselves into every aspect of our life, the Commerce Clause was there specifically to prohibit any kind of trade barriers and any kind of services or goods within America. And yet we have insurance companies who cannot sell insurance across state lines. But we got all these other mandates from Obama. So I agree with you. I think that in general, I understand we should have a free market. And when they try to extend that outside of the national borders, I think you're right. I think we do start heading down the road to a global governance, and I think we need to maintain a low-tax, small government with free trade inside American borders, and we can fund the government off of the tariffs of goods that are coming into this country. I think that creates a strong America. It creates a vital, we have everything within this country that we need in terms of skills and in terms of natural resources to do anything that we want, but we are losing all of that know-how. We're losing that manufacturing base, and it is atrophying and dying as it's being exported abroad. And so, when we have Gary Johnson say, hey, the argument we've always heard, hey, the Chinese are going to produce free stuff for us, I say, bring it on. And what has it done to us? It's turned us into hopeless dependence.
Yeah, you can still get things from other countries, but not for less than it costs to produce the same thing here.
That's right. That's right. And to what extent? I mean, when we look at the robots taking everybody's jobs, we say, well, Okay, that's great, but who's going to buy their products when nobody has any jobs? And that's the situation that we have here in America. If we're going to have these, if we have all of the wealth creation, and that's what we're talking about, we're talking about manufacturing, that is the heart of your economy. Yes, it's important to have a service economy, but a service economy without a manufacturing base to support it is a hollowed out economy that cannot survive and cannot prosper. I absolutely agree with you. Great call, but we've got to move on. Let's go to our next call.